Give me just a second, make sure all the streams are going good, and we'll begin. Okay, are at least 104 million people in China under government lockdown right now. And the reason I'm telling you this, and you can see this article that I've got up, this is from the New York Times. Beijing in time of coronavirus, no traffic, empty parks, and fear. Now, I'll get to how I arrived at the 104 million in just a second, but one of the things that alarms me the most is mainstream media is not reporting how many people are on lockdown. Go on the internet and see if you can find any mainstream media article that tells you the total number of people under lockdown within the last 2 days. I've been looking all over and you won't find it. So that raises a red flag with me right there. Why are they not talking about this? This is just as important as the virus itself, if not more important. Because if true, 104 million people have lost all their rights and their liberties in the snap of a finger. Okay, I'll show you how I'm getting my data here. Since I can't get mainstream media to show me how many people are in lockdown. Here, there's the article, and right there it shows you this is from the New York Times, and I'll read this article in a minute. The way I arrived at this 104 million people is this. Wikipedia, the 2020 Hubei lockdowns. Wikipedia yesterday or the day before yesterday had 61 million people under lockdown. Today it's been changed. They changed it to 57. So that's a difference of 4 million people. Okay, 57 million people, according to Wikipedia, under lockdown. Now, I'm going to show you indications that both Beijing and Shanghai are under a form of lockdown. They may not call it a lockdown, but there are indications that it's some form of lockdown for sure. So each of those cities has a population of 24 million apiece. So you add 24 million twice to 57 plus the 57 million because Beijing and Shanghai are not listed on this lockout. So 57 plus 24 twice equals 104 million people. That's how I arrived at this figure. Now, think of all the medium-sized cities all over China that we're not even hearing about. And the small cities, cities of 500,000 people. I think the smallest city on here is 1 million. So think about all the other cities across China, smaller, that we're getting no information on. Okay, now let me show you, whoops, let me go to the Beijing one here first. This is, let's see, this was published on February 3rd originally. So we're talking about 2 days ago, 2 or 3. The Chinese capital, like other cities far from the epidemic center, has imposed restrictions and shut down public places, straining the ties that bind society. Now, they're not calling it a lockdown, but they have imposed restrictions, shut down public spaces. Let's go on and look at this. The Apple stores were among the busiest places still open in Beijing. I'm going to get you to the really important. A break from the isolation, anxiety, and fear that have settled on the city of 23 million ever since the epidemic began. Now the stores have closed, along with the theaters, museums, cinemas, temples, barbers, hair salons, karaoke bars, and most other shops and restaurants. The Forbidden City has shut down until further notice. Now, here's where they don't call it a lockdown. Beijing is not under a strict government-ordered lockdown like that in Wuhan and other cities at the center of the epidemic. It has, however, imposed restrictions on practically every aspect of life. Well, I would call that a lockdown. It may be a matter of degrees or not quite as bad as Wuhan, but still, that is a form of lockdown. And you've got to remember who's giving you the information. Most people are getting their information from the government, the Chinese government. Don't you think it's pretty naive to trust with government's past history record? Don't you think it's kind of naive to just believe whatever government tells you, especially when they're corrupt, like China is? And by the way, so is the United States, corrupt to the gills. Same story, just a different way they do it. Okay, let me see what else I can. Ooh, see, they're calling it a shutdown. This shutdown, oops, let me get it. I'm sorry. This shutdown, in all but name, is occurring in the city after city across China, disrupting life and creating dystopian vistas of a suddenly depopulated country. This is from the New York Times. You got to remember, mainstream media lies their ass off too. So nobody really knows what's really going on there except the people that are there. Let me see. Urging everyone to take necessary precautions. Avoid crowded places or public gatherings. Including festivals, which were canceled anyway. Just trying to find the important stuff. Have posted sign refusing entry to anyone who's not wearing a mask. Suspicion has become its own contagion. Okay, now I'll take you back to the title. No traffic, empty parks, and fear. So I don't care what you call it. This is a form of lockdown, be it even though it is not as severe as Wuhan, is the point I'm trying to make. Okay, let's go to Shanghai. Here's Shanghai. Okay. And this is from ABC Australia. Here, I'll show it to you. ABC right there, Australia. Locked down against coronavirus in Shanghai, but how to get the groceries. Locked down. What's the extent of the lockdowns? Australian-born Broadway and West End theater producer Toby has lived there for 17 years. He's been telling me he's been locked down in his Shanghai apartment since Christmas. Now, I can't really explain that one. That would be before, well, no, the virus, there was word of the virus a month before the lockdown started. So that may be why he was in there since Christmas. And we have to have a somewhere to go in reporting the news, but can't trust anybody these days. You can't trust mainstream media. You can't trust the government. You can't trust social media. However, believe it or not, social media is breaking the stories faster than anybody else. Posting videos. You can see all sorts of videos allegedly from China on social media. And mainstream media even gets their news from social media, even while they criticize it all day long. This one is from the Jakarta Post. Chinese city lockdown approaches Shanghai. No, this is from Reuters. This is a Jakarta Post website, but the story is from Reuters. And this was dated yesterday. Okay, let's go through it. I'll just try to get the important stuff. Okay, more Chinese cities, including one 110 miles from Shanghai, will put under lockdown on Tuesday. Okay? We want to get to information about Shanghai. One person per household to go outside every 2 days to buy necessities. Suspend 95 train services into the city. And I'm not sure. I'm looking for Shanghai information. See, they haven't even talked about Shanghai yet. They're talking about other cities. Now, see, this is another trick that mainstream media does. They were talking about Shanghai in the title and not one word in the article about Shanghai. Chinese city lockdown approaches Shanghai. So that means the lockdown is going towards Shanghai. But the streets, there are several reports. You can watch the videos on Twitter. Show that Shanghai is empty. It's already said many of the shops are closed. This one uses the word lockdown against coronavirus in Shanghai. So I can only report, what to try to give you a glimpse of what's going on. So once again, that's how I arrived at the number of 104 million. Wikipedia is saying 57 million. Shanghai is 24 million. Beijing is 24 million. That's 104 million people under lockdown, government lockdown. And once again, check out mainstream media and see if you can find the numbers from them in the last 2 days about how many people are under government lockdown. You won't be able to find it. You may find the last they've said is 56 million, some say 40 million. But in the last 2 days, you won't be able to find any information. Mainstream media has just put a blackout on that. Somebody doesn't want you getting information about this lockdown, which is just as dangerous as the actual virus, if not more dangerous. And just to top it off on the end, if you don't think it can happen in your country or our country, you can watch it on my website, George W. Bush, when he was president, talking about quarantining parts of America in the case of a virus. Would we not then quarantine parts of America? And would we not bring in the military to do that? Okay, I think that's it for the broadcast. I just want to come on, and I'm not saying it's 104 million, but I'm saying there are indications to back up what I'm presenting here. All right, I will talk to y'all soon.